Okay. So today I wanted to talk about a couple of things, guys. One of them is called life cycle management. Okay. So we talked about various storage classes, right? We have a standard, intelligent tiering, standard IA, one zone IA, glacier. Of course, these two are different. These two are archival, right? So we have these many storage classes. So lifecycle management is all about what it is as an architect, you always have to think about pricing. Okay. So let's say you're working for a bank. I'll take the same example. Okay. You're working for a bank and you guys generate monthly statements and put it out there in S3. So, so for your use case, you put it there in S3 and the use case is first 1 month, your customers always use it very frequently. First 1 month, as soon as the statement is generated, it's a live example also, right? So most of the people will look at their statement as soon as they get email. So they will log into their bank website or bank app, and then they will open the statement. Okay. So it will be pulled from S3. So it makes sense for 1 month to put it in the S3 standard. So, and the 30 to 90 days, they will sort of, you have been observing the pattern that from 30 to 90 days, pretty much they will use it occasionally, very infrequently. So it makes sense to move these objects from standard to probably standard infrequently access S3 standard IA. Okay, it makes sense to move them from here to here after 30 days. Leave there for the first 30 days because first 30 days, customer will always be looking at it. It's that's the use case, right? So after that, move it to one zone IA. Standard IA. So after 90 days, right? So after 90 days, pretty much we will store it just for the compliance reasons. When the same customer comes back and looks for statements, so he will probably send out an email or he will request it in the website saying that I want my 2 years back or 1 year back, 1, 2 years, it doesn't matter. So I want my statement 2 years back. Okay, they will make the request on the website, and we will fetch that from either Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive, one of these solutions, and then make it available. So we will not make it available to customer immediately. That's not the requirement. So once he requests it, meaning after 90 days or 120 days, once he makes the request, within 12 hours, our SLAs with the customer is, within 12 hours, we will get back to you. We will send you a statement once you make it. First 90 days, absolutely. So we have a different kinds of requirement, right? First 30 days, I want to be in standard. After 30 days, 30 to 90 days, pretty much, go into this standard IA. After 90 days or 120 days, stay there for another 30 days for infrequently access, and then move on to Glacier. And then your compliance, you have to keep the statements for compliance reasons for, let's say, 4 years. After 4 years, you can expire them, you can delete them. You can permanently delete them. You don't need to maintain it, even from Glacier to Glacier Deep Archive. So how the life cycle of your objects will move from one storage class to another storage class to getting expired to permanently delete all of this. How do you do that? So S3 provides a beautiful way of writing it your own rules. This is called lifecycle management. It's so simple. It's very, very simple to do it, and very effective. As an architect, you want to keep this tool in your tool set. Does it make sense what a lifecycle management is? I'll show you how to do that, how to write simple lifecycle rules. But does that make sense? What's the use cases? So log into your S3 if it makes sense. And okay, this is our bucket, the one we started yesterday. Next step, that training, and go there. Let's say this is our bank statements bucket, right? So go to management, and here lifecycle. So see here, add lifecycle rule. So now let's say the first rule is move to standard IA after 30 days, right? So by default, I put it in standard, but after 30 days, pretty much, these statements get consumed very infrequently. Okay, limit the scope to specific prefixes or tags. I can do that if I have a specific way of doing it. Meaning, if I'm storing my bank statements along with my some other pictures of something else. So if I'm using my bucket for several reasons, then I can put all the prefixes statement / star, use this lifecycle rule. You can do that, but I made this bucket only for statements, so I'll go for apply all objects in this bucket. So now there are per request fees when using lifecycle to transition data to any S3 or S3 Glacier storage class. No worries there. So do you want to transition only the current version or all the previous versions too? Well, yes, I want to move the current version, all the previous versions too. So for current version, I think you understand current version, previous version, what it means. We talked about versioning, right? So this is the latest version, and these are all the previous versions, right? For current version of objects, let's add a transition. So you don't have any transitions at this point. Let's add so transition to standard IA after 30 days. So this is my goal, right? Guys, we are hearing some background noise. Can you please put it on mute?
Venkat, why can't we use Glacier or something else? Because you're just archiving it, right?
No, I define my use case like that, right? You can absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong in that. But my use case is first 30 days, very frequently used. From 30 to 90, infrequently used. After 90 days, I have to put it in Glacier for a couple of years and then delete them.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So transition to, go ahead.
Venkat, is versioning need to enable to add a lifecycle rule? Is it mandatory?
It's not mandatory, no. Versioning is not mandatory for lifecycle. So you can definitely do that without versioning enabled. Okay. So transition to standard IA after 30 days. For all the previous versions, you can do maybe all the previous versions I can safely move to standard IA after this one also move it to, this one is move it to 30 days, definitely. And the latest one, this is where probably you can be smarter. Meaning all the previous versions, I don't need it. You can safely move after 30 days, okay? And the current version, probably you want to keep it for more than 30 days. But okay, now configure expiration. Expiration is, so by the way, you can also put one more transition. This is after 30 days, right? So let's go to one zone IA after Glacier. So I'll go directly to the Glacier deep archive. This is really, so what's the use case? For first 30 days, we will be in standard, and after 30 days, we will be in standard IA for 90 days. And after 90 days, let's go directly to Glacier Deep Archive, because Glacier Deep Archive, you better read this one. Glacier Deep Archive is the cheapest. It is the cheapest, I agree, but not for the smallest objects. Lifecycle transition includes a per object transition cost, because you're moving from, you're moving the data from one storage class to another storage class. So there is a moving charges. Okay, the transition charges will be there, and per object transition cost, he will charge you per object. So understand that. I acknowledge it. So this one, what do I want to do? 90 days. So after 90 days, directly put it into Glacier Deep Archive. Okay. And probably I want to do the same thing.
Can
Have a question?
Yeah, you said per object there is, right? Can we write
Yes.
something to say that, okay, if it reaches say 10 objects after 30 days, then only move? Because one object will cost you. If we do 10 objects at a time, it's reducing cost, right?
Yeah.
Means, can we create a rule? All I'm asking.
No, not with S3, but you have to write something else. There is another one called Lambda. We'll talk about that probably towards the end of the class. So with Lambda, you can write your own piece of code. Okay. So as soon as once it goes to, from standard to standard IA, you can have a Lambda configured, and that Lambda will grab them, probably zip all those statements, because maybe you don't need the individual ones. Maybe you want to zip them, right? Zip them and move it somewhere else. You can do that. But you have to write a piece of code. For that, you need another concept called Lambda. Okay?
Thank you.
Venkat, one question.
Absolutely.
So we have standard intelligent. What is that? What is the name?
Intelligent tiering, and then standard IA, infrequently accessed.
Yeah. So archive, deep archive. Okay. So the intelligent tier, like when we put it will make sure move the objects based on our access.
Exactly.
What is the difference between putting the objects in this intelligent tier and adding a lifecycle management? If we put the objects in intelligent tier directly, it can't move.
No. Okay. The intelligent tiering will, based on your needs, it will go from standard to standard IA. Okay. That's the only one. But this life cycle is kind of is permanent, right? So you are putting the role in such a way that based on your needs, you will be moving to one zone IA, you'll be moving to Glacier Deep Archive. You can't do any of that with intelligent tiering. Intelligent tiering is there just in case you are not sure. If you don't have a fixed usage pattern, you don't know what storage class it is. In that case, go for intelligent tiering, and that Amazon's machine learning will figure it out. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. So configure expiration. Expiration means you're completely kind of end of life of these objects. So yes, please, current version, previous version. So expire, first of all, let's talk about this one. Permanently delete all previous versions right after, let's say, 1 year, 365 days. I don't need all the previous versions. And this one, the current version, probably, let's say my 365 times, let's say 5 years. Okay, 1825. So 1825. So I want to keep this in deep archive for 5 years. Okay, after that, because 5 years is my compliance rule. All the banks, let's say, they have a compliance rule from the federal government saying that you have to keep the statements for 5 years. Within 5 years, when customer asks, you have to be able to provide it. Okay. After that, you permanently delete it, and then clean up expired object delete markers. So when you have versioning enabled, your delete markers will be there, right? So you can clean them up. And yes, I want this to be cleaned. Okay, expired objects. Oh, I'm actually permanently deleting it anyway. Okay, you can have this cleanup if you're not permanently deleting it, and also clean up incomplete multi-part uploads. So when you are programmatically uploaded, so S3 always makes sure that your file is fully uploaded. Meaning, let's say you're uploading a 2 meg file, okay, 2 meg your bank statement. So when you use your multi-part uploads, meaning chunks, you're uploading chunk by chunk, right? Yeah, using multi-part uploads. So when you do that, let's say you have a connectivity issue after uploading 1 meg, it will not keep that 1 meg in S3 and make it available for users. So it will store it somewhere in attic. Okay, you can clean up all of those incomplete multi-part uploads. Okay, so you can delete it after 7 days. Yeah, that's reasonable. 7 or 14, whatever it one is. And then once you click on next, I acknowledge, I understand all of these rules. Go ahead and save it. That's it. This is called lifecycle rules. As an architect, you definitely want to think about it. Okay, so you will not be questioned on any of these fees or any of the charges, not on that, but you will have to know the concept. When do you want to use the lifecycle management? Okay, that's it, guys. That's about the S3 lifecycle management. Any questions before I talk about another small topic? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So you created a bucket. You had a lot of objects in the bucket. You didn't life cycle rules, but after 6 months, you added life cycle rule, whatever you added. So it will apply to all objects in the
It will
bucket,
apply to all objects. Yes.
Okay.
It will apply to either all objects, or you can set up your prefix, right? Remember, in your lifecycle rule, you can say apply to all objects, or with a specific prefix. You can specify the prefix. Let's say I'm storing all log files in my S3 bucket. Okay, and I want to write a lifecycle rule for all of them. So let's say /log/star. Make sense?
Yeah.
So all the files that have this kind of prefix, they will get applied, or I can go with the tags, or I can go with the complete all objects. So that's about, did I answer your question first of all?
Yes, Venkat.
Venkat, can you show once again?
Yeah, absolutely. Add lifecycle rule. See here. Limit the scope to specific prefixes or tags, or apply to all objects in the bucket. If I want to limit, I want this lifecycle rule I'm about to create to be applied only to the subset of the objects, meaning all the logs, and I'm just clean up after my rule is, sorry, my rule is, so clean up logs. Let's say I'm doing this rule, right? /logs prefix. That's it. Make sense? See this one? The prefix you entered contains a leading / character and will match like this. Oops, I put the wrong. So it's already putting that guy. Okay. See this one? So Sonic Visional, not Sonic, nextstep.training /logs/star. So all the objects that have this particular prefix, this rule, whatever the rules that you are going to apply here,
Can we add multiple? Can we add multiple?
Can we add multiple prefixes? Good question. Let's try.
Because it didn't stay stop, right? I think so.
I'm with you.
Add multiple.
I'm with you. So prefixes with the logs, and also let's say statements. Maybe logs and statements, right?
Let's say pictures.
Sure.
JPEG. JPEG files or PDF files.
That's good. So, oh, hey, looks like my previous log file is gone. So, interesting. Picture slash, and then log slash. Sorry, looks like it doesn't allow multiple.
It takes only one. Sorry.
Very good.
Venkat, have
So
a question.
that's a dynamic answer. I didn't know before. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so you can add multiple life cycle rules to it, right? Like I see the add button.
Yep.
Let's say if there is any discrepancy in two of the life cycle rules, they are contradicting. Is there the AWS smart enough to throw an error, or it will? I mean, how do the user know that? Okay, let's say for 30 days I move, after 90 days I'm moving it to Glacier, but some other life cycle rule I'm putting it something else. So will it restrict while creating that life cycle rule, or it will allow? And
That's
which one
yeah.
would it pick?
Right. Actually, it will, total consolidation, it will take into consideration. The life cycle rule itself, it should prevent you from being able to kind of put a contradicting rule there. So saying that, hey, you have something else here, so it will contradict with you.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
So during the creation itself, yeah.
So Venkat, so LifeCycle, it looks like LifeCycle is an important part of architectures who are doing it. Now, does it come as a prerequisite that you have to do it, or
No.
means where does it stand?
No, it doesn't have to. You don't have to. So if you have, if you're storing some, transactional data, for example, and if you all transactional data storing it in S3, I can't imagine it, but I'm saying, some stuff that you're putting it in S3 and you don't want to clean up. Okay, it's always there. It's always constant, and if it has to be there, then don't worry about it. You don't have to do it. No, there's no. It's a tool for architects to look at the cost. Okay, this could be one of the reasons. A lot of times we go to cloud with the assumption that cloud will be cheaper, but we will end up getting a lot of bill. It's a bigger bill than traditional data centers. Okay, so the reason is it's not in this. The power is not. So it's in our hands. So the sword is not the problem. It's the people who use the sword is the main problem, right? So we want to utilize these life cycle rules. I mean, this is just one example, right? And then things like that to kind of reduce your bill.
Yeah, but okay, I'll put my questions to later. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll stop the talk.
Venkat, another question. Like, if we edit this life cycle rule, like after 1 year or so, after a few of the objects have already moved to their respective.
It's only going forward.
Story. Oh, sorry.
It's only going forward. It doesn't do anything with the stuff.
The existing stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
It does not.
Thanks.
Yep.
Venkat, when you create this rule, does it start from the time you created it, or can you say, like say you're in the development stage and you just applied the rule, but can you say to apply this rule after a certain time?
It applies immediately to all the objects based on your prefixes or tags, based on the objects that exist in the bucket at that time. Okay. So as Nischala was just asking, right? So if already I created a lifecycle rule a while ago, and then a lot of the objects have already been moved, it doesn't do anything about it. Okay, from that point onwards, because it only knows from that point onwards, right? All the objects from that point forward. Make sense?
Yeah.
So only based on the objects that it knows from that point in time. Okay, so that's about the lifecycle rule. You just understand it, but not a big deal. It's a simple thing, right? simple topic. So let's talk about another important aspect here called replication. So especially this cross-region replication. You guys know very well that S3 buckets are region specific. When you create a bucket, you have to specify what region you are creating this bucket in. So let's say I have a use case where a lot of my users who upload the content, they happen to be in the United States. Okay, but a lot of the people, a lot of the clients who consume that particular data, they happen to be in Asia Pacific. So the content is here. Content is somewhere in Midwest, either Ohio or Northern Virginia. Okay, so these guys who are in Asia Pacific, 90% of my clients are there. So I have a couple of options here. I have to directly upload these objects directly into Asia Pacific region, or I can do something else about it. So go ahead and upload it into your Midwest region. Okay, for the compliance reasons, you have to have them in your source. But once every object gets uploaded into your source bucket, I want the data to be transferred into some other bucket, either bucket in the same region or a bucket in a completely different region. So I have a bucket in Ohio region. I have another bucket in Mumbai. Okay, so now the requirement I have is that after I upload the objects into my Midwest, my Ohio region, it has to automatically transfer it to Mumbai region. One, I have compliance reasons. I need to store it in another geographical region or another continent. Okay, and the second one is, actually, can you go ahead and mute all of you? I still hear some background noise. Thank you. Okay. One is compliance regions. I have to store a copy of it in a different part of the world, like in a different continent. And the another region is probably a lot of consumers happen to be in that Asia Pacific region. Then I want to do it. In that case, you can use this concept called replication. So you can replicate the objects within a same region, or you can do it in a cross-regional replication. That's very, very powerful. What it will do is it will asynchronously, after you upload the objects here, it doesn't happen that second, but asynchronously, it will do it behind the scenes. It will replicate it in a different region. So to see that in action, what you want to do is you create two buckets, one in Midwest or your favorite place, right? I mean, for this example, I'll take one in Ohio, the other one in Mumbai or Singapore area. So now you have I will call the Ohio bucket as a source bucket, the other one as a destination bucket. Now set up your cross-regional replication between these two. So if you want to set up cross-regional replication, the most important point is the versioning must be enabled. So for both source and destination buckets, both of them versioning must be enabled. Very important point going into the exam. Okay, so if let's say you have two buckets, and then let me go ahead and create the bucket. Actually, this is nextstep.training, right? Let's go ahead and create nextstep.training dash destination or copy. I'm keeping my copy for compliance reasons in a different part of the world. Let's say Sydney, Tokyo, Singapore, or actually in my example, I said Mumbai. Okay. So sure, block all public access. I have a different plan for that. So let's leave it like that. Okay. So my nextstep.training, my source in Ohio, my destination in Mumbai. So let's go to source. Let's go to management. Let's go to replication, and let's add a replication rule. And again, you can do a cross-region replication. That's exactly what we are trying to do here. Of course, you can do a same region replication too. So add rule. Yes, I want my entire bucket content. Again, this is also going forward. All the objects that are uploaded from the point this rule is created. Okay, it will not do all the existing objects. So yes, the entire object, click on next. Otherwise, if you want to do only the log files and pictures, something like prefixes, you can absolutely do that, like how we tried doing it. I want entire object. And by default, it doesn't do with KMS. You don't know what KMS is. So don't worry about it for now. This is all about encryption. We'll look at encryption down the line. So you can replicate objects across buckets in different AWS regions, or you can replicate objects across buckets in the same region. I want to do it in a different region anyway. See this one? Next step, training copy. This is in Asia Pacific, Mumbai. And then go to, okay, see it's saying the bucket doesn't have versioning enabled. My source bucket has versioning enabled, but I did not enable when I just created it. So it's letting me do it. Replication requires a bucket versioning, both on the source and destination side, guys. Please understand that going into the exam. Enable versioning. So, okay, my destination also now has versioning enabled, and the destination options change the storage class for the replicated object. Sure, I can, here I have a standard, and here I can safely say one zone IA. This is again, as an architect, think about it. What's your requirements? What are your, compliance reasons, regulatory reasons, or what are your performance reasons? Maybe you want, 80% of your clients are in Asia Pacific area. Okay, so you want to give them somewhat, low latency kind of experience, right? So you want them to go into that.
Venkat, one question. In your example, you're saying most of your customers in Mumbai, Asia Pacific region. Mm-hmm. How it relates to replication? Replication is kind of taking a backup in case.
Okay, so yes, replication is kind of taking a backup. I agree, but I can have my Asia Pacific application to point to that the destination bucket. Absolutely can, and I'll have low latency.
So basically, once you create the bucket will have some URL. So you are pointing to basically the main bucket is in Ohio.
Yep.
So it points to the bucket to Ohio, and you have backup in Mumbai. Mm-hmm. It have different URLs, right?
Absolutely.
So your customers will point to Mumbai bucket when accessing their object.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Yep. So you change your application. It's your web application, right? So let's say you are building a web application or a mobile application. Change your the web application, point to Mumbai bucket. It's very simple, right?
It's kind of a scaling, right? Not.
It's kind of a scaling. Now here, my requirement is that 80% of the people live in Asia Pacific. Okay, I want to give them low latency experience for my mobile application. That's my requirement. Let's say, some gaming. Okay, gaming application. So, but for other reasons, my source bucket must be in Midwest for other reasons, because this is where the content creators are, and this is where other 20% of the people are, and so as soon as the content gets uploaded by these content creators, I want to replicate it. It's not an archival. I just want to replicate it in a different location. And I will have my mobile application in Asia Pacific. Absolutely. I have a different mobile application in Asia Pacific. I will point to that Asia Pacific bucket. Does anything, does anything prevent me, based on what you know so far, does anything prevent me from doing it? Let's answer that.
So Venkat, there will be a lot of rules that you need to write in order to achieve that, right? So let's assume. Sorry if I'm extending the discussion.
Oh, that's fine.
Let's assume this, that you have a global customer face. Okay, your application has a global customer face. You divided your regions. You know that you have 40% from Asia Pacific, 40% from Europe, and 20% from North America.
Okay.
Each region has different rules.
Okay.
Europe has a different rule because you cannot take out the data from Europe. You have to put all your service in Europe.
Yep.
Asia Pacific doesn't have that rule. You can have anywhere the data. North America, if it's a Fed, you have to ensure that the data is onshore rather than offshore. Okay. Now 40-40-20. So what you're saying is, for example, if I have to do a replication rule, I need to have one North America where I have to write a rule that if anything, any user that is trying to...
No, I think we are mixing the use cases here. Before we go any further, we are mixing the use cases here. Okay. So we have to wait. If you have a global presence, clients across the globe, I have a different solution. You have to go with CDN, Content Delivery Network, but for that, you have to wait for another 10 minutes. Okay. We'll talk about that today. It's there in my schedule. So I'm not talking about that. So if you have a global presence, okay, and if you still want to have a low latency across the globe, okay, there's a completely different option. So this one, I'm specifically saying that I need to replicate, I have to have my data in a different geographical region for compliance reasons. And also I have some, I have my customer base there. I want to give them low latency. So is there anything that stops me from doing it? Is a simple question. Based on what we know so far, does it stop anything? Forget about architecture for a second. We'll talk about CDN and all later. Does it stop me from, as an architect, if it comes to my mind, that solution, does technical stuff, does anything stop me from doing it?
No.
Okay, let's stick with that. Does it make sense? And for the global presence, I will provide a different solution. Yes. And that's how Netflix does it. That's how Amazon Prime does it, or iTunes does it. All the people and almost all the company. In fact, Apple.com. When you go there, it goes through a different CDN. We'll talk about that. But these are the two reasons. One is the compliance reasons. For compliance reasons, I have my regulatory reasons that I need to maintain a copy of it in a different region. Okay, that's one. Either that, or I have some of my customers, crucial customers in that area, and I want to give them low latency experience. I can do that.
I think we need to differentiate between replication and backup. I think our head is still stuck to replication as backup. This is not backup that we're doing. We are doing a replication so that we can change our application rules accordingly.
Essentially, it's a replication is nothing but a copy of the object. As soon as an object is uploaded in the source bucket, a copy of that particular object will be stored in a different bucket. That's all it is. We don't need to make
be available in both the buckets, right?
Absolutely.
Because you're replicating.
Absolutely. It will be available in both the buckets. That's the beauty. So the content providers or content creators will upload into the source bucket magically behind the scenes asynchronously. So without content creators getting any problem, okay, behind the scenes, it will take the copy of your objects and put it into a bucket on the other side of the world. Make sense? Okay. So, but when you do that, when you copy, when you make a copy of it and put it on the other side of the world, you can change your storage class. You can definitely get cheaper pricing here. I can go with, based on my requirement, of course, based on my requirement, I can go to one zone IA. Okay. And of course, I can even change the object ownership to destination bucket owner. So I can, maybe this can be owned by a different guy. You can also do that. Okay. And this time control, don't worry about it. It's to make it faster. Behind the scenes, it will use a different technology called transfer acceleration. It's if you have time control enabled, then replication time control replicates 99.99% of new objects within 15 minutes, but you will get additional charges. I don't need this. Next, okay. And then who is doing this for you? Who is doing the copy of this object from source bucket to the destination bucket? S3 is doing on behalf of you. S3 is doing on behalf of you. I want you to understand it. S3 code, some process inside S3 is doing on behalf of you. Okay, but they need your permission to do that. Okay, it's all role-based authentication. So you can create a new role, and then behind the scenes it will create the new role and then assign it to that particular process, so that it will be able to copy it from source destination to this. Source to destination. Okay. So what do you want to call this rule name as? Copy to Mumbai. That's my rule name. Okay. Enabled, status enabled. Sure. And then from this point onwards, when a new object gets created in my next step.training, it will automatically and asynchronously go into my next step.training copy bucket asynchronously, automatically, and without me having to do anything. Let's test that. So let's upload a file here. Let's say finance details. Oh, looks like I already have it. Let's upload. Do we have anything? What's this? AWS training? Sure. Let's upload that document. So replication happens asynchronously. It may not happen immediately, but a lot of times it will happen pretty fast. If you have that time control enabled, then 99.99% of the times it will be done in within 15 minutes. Okay, so click on that. Obviously, it's not. It's a different bucket, different rules, different. It can be the different owner of the bucket also. So I want to make it public. I can make public. Why not? Do you know why this is disabled here? Because
you didn't give the permission to the bucket itself.
Beautiful. Good point. Yep. The bucket itself. Let's go to not object, but bucket. Go to bucket permissions. Block public access has been enabled. Let's change that guy. Save. Yes, I want to confirm it. Okay. Now let's go to objects. Overview, AWS training, make public. Okay, looks like these are my personal document, something that I uploaded into my next step training, and then it automatically went into the other side of the world and a different bucket. Makes sense? This is called CRR, cross-regional replication. So going into the exam, the most important thing that you need to understand here is that versioning must be enabled on both source and destination buckets. And that's number one. Number two, it will happen, the transfer happens asynchronously. Okay.
So one question. So you have Mumbai is the destination. If source goes down for any reason, so you be in Mumbai, your application points to Mumbai. Do you do anything, or it will take care of themselves?
There are, for all practical purposes, they are two different buckets. Okay, once you take out the replication, they are two different buckets in two sides of the in two different places on the earth. That's all. So when, complete Ohio region is down, complete region, I'm not talking about availability zone. Okay, complete region is down, still you have your copy there. It's a copy. It's not a reference. It's a real copy. You are paying for both of them for all practical purposes. Understand?
No, my question is, entire region goes down. So Mumbai, you have data copy in your Mumbai region. So suppose your next step training, your objects are related to next step training website. So your copy in your data is available in Mumbai. So in that case, you have to make any changes to your website to point to that Mumbai region.
I thought you are at least in our use case, I thought we started with the use case that our website is pointing to the Mumbai region, the destination bucket, right? For the performance reasons. So is that pointing to the source bucket? Yeah.
Okay. In this case, okay, Mumbai went down, and Ohio is only option you have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you have to do? So are you asking what do you have to do to repoint to your source bucket?
Yes, yeah. You have to, or it will take care of.
No, it will not take care. They are two different copies. There's nothing. It does not take care. It only knows the replicating the objects from source to destination. That's all. If one is down, it's down. So if someone is pointing to that whole region, if that whole region happens to be down, your application is all the functionalities that depend on that are down. Period. Make sense? I know. Now you're thinking, okay, then
can we route it back to source?
Yeah. So that's where I'm going now.
Okay.
So okay, the point, the question that you're now, the natural question is, okay, my whole application is down, but guys, I want you to understand here. We are talking about the whole region being down. You will never architect for anything for like that. I mean, yes, something like Netflix. Netflix has Netflix-like companies. Maybe I don't want to say that Netflix is the only one, but Netflix has they contributed quite a bit to the whole cloud architecture. They invented a concept called simian army. Okay, they are the only one kind of Netflix simian army. So it's they have a concept of chaos monkeys and chaos gorillas and all. So I'll tell you what the simian army is. So most of the architectures in the world, okay, you want to be able to answer one question. What if my availability zone is down? Am I still in the business or not? So if you're really a company like Netflix or Facebook, then you have to be able to answer the questions like, what if the complete region is down? You definitely have to be able to answer the question. Okay, that's where there is a global service called CDN. I will talk about it next. That's what you want to use it. But do you really want to, for your example, do you really want to, so you have your source bucket in Ohio and destination bucket in Mumbai. If the complete Ohio is down, my web application is pointing to Ohio, okay, my Ohio region in this example. If my complete Ohio region is down, not the availability zone, that means complete some nuclear attack or some earthquake or something like that, in the entire the state got wiped out. Okay, God forbid. So now the Mumbai on the other side. So can I change it to Mumbai at that time? That's definitely a disaster recovery situation. For 99% of the companies, that's a DR situation, meaning disaster recovery. So what you will have to do is, then you have to talk about where is your application code running. If your application code is also running in Ohio, then unfortunately we are screwed. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the fact, right? So you are in the DR situation now. Yes, as an architect, it's all about the trade-off. Okay, cost versus over architecting versus cost versus the practicality, right? So if your application code also happens to be there, now you are in DR situation. Now you want to move your application code somewhere to some other region, and you have to be able to spin up your infrastructure completely. Okay, and now point to the Mumbai region. So it definitely takes few hours. But as an architect, should I be prepared? It depends on the context. Netflix, absolutely, they have to be prepared. Facebook, they have to be able to answer it. Google, absolutely. Amazon, absolutely, they have to be prepared. That's why they have the code, presence across the globe. Very lengthy answer, but did I answer it?
No, I asked this question because the initial requirement you said you have most of the clients are in Mumbai, Asia Pacific. That's why you're making a copy in Mumbai.
Yep.
So basically, people are not pointing to Mumbai region by default. They will point to Ohio. Something happen. Everything will go down. You have to make a change and point to Mumbai region. So basically, it points to only one bucket, not the other bucket. Basically,
you got it. That's a code change. Is all I'm saying is that's a code change. How do you manage the code? It's all up to you. So you put it in a properties file or somewhere, or read it from database. Okay, that's but for all practical purposes, they are two entirely different buckets. Make sense? So when one region is down, one bucket is not available for whatever the region, magic will not happen. It will not be automatically pointed to that. They are two different buckets. There's no magic. Period.
Venkat?
Mm-hmm.
The life cycle actions, will they be replicated too?
That's an excellent point. So will life cycle rules be replicated? They will not be automatically replicated. Actually, you'll have to create the life cycle rules again here. There is a big documentation out there, the cross-regional replication. They talk about so they talk about life cycle rules there. What will and what will not be. So life cycle rules will not be. When to use CRR, when to do, what does Amazon S3 replicate? But they will not be.
Okay, so it technically means you can have different rules.
Yep. You have to define the rules. You have to define the rules there. Okay, so any other questions? But do I recommend reading this entire document out there for all the practical purposes? Can I tell you in the entire exam perspective? This is probably 0.01% of the total topic. Okay, so no, I will not recommend going into the exam. I think I have these 3 points. It's an automatic asynchronous replication to destination object. Destination bucket can be owned by a different account, and versioning must be enabled for CRR. Versioning must be enabled on both source and destination buckets. Okay. CRR. And why do you want to do that? Compliance regions, and then minimize latency for customers in a different geographical area. These are the typical use cases. I'm not saying these are the only ones, but understand that it's different. Okay. Any questions?